Go ahead.
I apologize. May I ask the court to consider perhaps an alternative, and I fully respect the ruling the court has just made, and I understand the basis for it. We all know the defendant, in his petulance, will say jury nullification in the first 3 seconds the jury's in the room.
Objection to that.
Proper
I don't
thing
think
to
that
do,
I
I
should be
think,
talked
Your
down
Honor.
Stop
to.
interrupting,
I don't
Attorney
think I
Ocker,
should
please.
be talked down to.
Allow him to make his closing argument. I will object if he misstates the law. You can instruct the jury to disregard any misstatements of the law. And we continue in that fashion, if possible, for a reasonable amount of time. And if it becomes to the point where there's no reasonable, legal, credible argument that's being made, then the court can decide as to whether or not he's forfeited his right to a closing argument. But we could at least try to, by merely objecting and the court telling the jury to disregard and instructing Mr. Brooks to move on to the next topic, we could try to allow him his opportunity to provide a closing argument. If that's unworkable, then I think this record will be very clear as to the efforts of this court. And I think there is materials in the bench book, or I'm sorry, the jury instruction 705 that talk about a jury instruction this court could even give, telling the jury that they are not at liberty to disregard the law, but we're not going that far yet because, frankly, you have told them and you will tell them that closing arguments are not evidence. And I think they will abide by that. So I know it's going to require effort for the court to allow this to allow Mr. Brooks to try and proceed, but I think we should try that or something similar to that in an effort to get through this next step, or else we will continue at this pace forever.
I'm certainly willing to try that.
It's about all we could come up with, Your Honor.
I mean, I'm certainly willing to try it in this courtroom, and then if he disregards that, to excuse the jury and then have him present from the other courtroom would be the second step, and then third would be a forfeiture.
Agreed.
Your Honor, I object to that.
Your objection is noted for the record. That will be the course of action that this court takes. The first time you violate the rule, you may be subject to forfeiting your right to be present, where you will give the closing argument from the other courtroom. And if you continue in a blatant disregard of the requirement that you not reference in any way jury nullification, I may make that final determination outside the presence of the jury.
I object to that, Your Honor.
All right, with that, let's bring the jury
For the
out.
record, may I respectfully request the legal reconsideration of your ruling? So is that a tacit agreement that you don't have to answer my objection, Your Honor?
I decline to reconsider.
I reject that ruling and take exception to that ruling, Your Honor.
Noted for the record.
For the record, may I request a legal or factual basis for your ruling, Your Honor?
Denied.
For the record, may I respectfully request a written judicial finding of facts and conclusion of law on this issue, Your Honor?
Denied.
For the record, may I respectfully move for interlocutory declaratory appeal on this matter?
I'm not the court to address that.
For the record, may I move to stay these proceedings until this instant matter is adjudicated by a court of competent jurisdiction, which this court has no subject matter jurisdiction.
Denied.
Under,
The jury's
based on
coming
what
in.
law or
All rise
fact?
for the jury, please.
Based on what law or fact? Because I'm going to inform the jury of their power. They deserve to know.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Go ahead, Mr. Brooks, your closing argument, please.
Good afternoon. It's been a long day. First off, I'd just like to start by letting you guys know that it's a lot of information that you guys should be privy to, I believe. And one thing that I believe that you have not been privy to is the truth of your rights and your duties, being the jury. The fact that you and you alone have the power, not well-prepared DAs with well-prepared and clearly rehearsed speeches and exhibits and a lot of theatrics. Frankly, not the judge. You and you alone have the power. You and you alone decide what is truth and what isn't truth. You should be informed that you have the power to nullify any law that you don't agree with.
Objection. Move to strike misstatement.
Sustained.
Objection.
I will strike from the record the last statement made by the defendant. The jury will disregard it.
Which is clearly what I've been saying. I believe that not only is it fair, but it's essential that you be privy to all knowledge, not knowledge that certain people feel that you should hear and shouldn't hear, disguised under the color of law. The fact of the matter is, just like I did with my opening statements, I don't have a well-prepared or rehearsed speech. I didn't look in the mirror and say certain points to myself over and over again to make sure I have them right or anything like that. I've chosen to speak from the heart in my opening statements, and now I'm going to speak from the heart. What you won't hear me do is argue facts. And the reason you won't hear me argue facts is because I believe that it takes away from what should be recognized. The tragedy of this event, it should be recognized. Trying to argue facts of this, facts of that, I'm not going to waste your time doing that. It's a little emotional. I apologize for the long pause. It's hard to keep everything together emotionally. And honestly, I don't believe that I have any more tears left. It's been a hard year. For the families, mostly. And that should not be lost on anyone. It shouldn't be taken away. I said it before and I'll say it again. It's a lot of people that are healing, that are attempting to heal. That opens the door to talk about forgiveness for a little bit. with every healing process, there comes a forgiving process. It's not an easy thing for anyone. What you've been hearing from the prosecution, and not to take anything away from them, but let's call it what it is. You've been hearing a lot of rerun. Same things over and over and over. No different than when you turn on the radio and you first hear that song that you don't like when you first hear it, but they play it so much that eventually you start saying it, the words to yourself before you even realize it. And then you sit and you go, I hate that song. Why am I singing it? That's what's been happening. Rerun. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Attempting to make things stick in your head that simply aren't true. Why do I say, what am I saying? I say, look at the testimony. You know, the theme from the prosecution here has been intent, 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 intent. We all know what's been said. We all know the picture that's been painted. Even the prosecution said themselves. How can you look in somebody's head and say, this is what they intended to do? You know, for a year, I've sat and gone through this. Feeling so powerless. You know, letting other people run with the narratives. Sitting back helpless while other people paint a picture that has zero truth. Zero. I understand about healing myself, tragedy, pain, all that. A lot of it, there's no need to get into. I myself in my own life have had to do a lot of healing. As a man with children myself, I find it hard to believe that anyone who's really had conversations with me, spent time around me, would think for 1 second that this is an intentional act. I've never heard of someone intentionally trying to hurt someone while attempting to blow their horn. While attempting to alert people of their presence. Which brings me to more information that I believe that you should have been privy to. And I'm sure that the prosecution will beg to differ, but the fact of the matter is, the vehicle in question, make and model of 2010, Ford Escape. The vehicle in question, actually 2008, 2009, and 2010 of that model was in fact recalled.
Objection, misstatement of the facts, facts not in evidence.
Was in
Improper
fact-
argument, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Was in fact recalled, was in fact a class action lawsuit against Ford
Objection,
for
facts
those
not in
model
evidence,
for
Your
those
Honor.
model vehicles.
Sustained. The jury will disregard.
Information that you should have been privy to, that you weren't allowed to be privy to. Why? I don't know. That information, malfunctioning throttle bodies,
Mr. Brooks, move on.
it's information that you should have been privy to. Vehicles that malfunction and accelerate not being able to be stopped.
Objection, that is
It's
completely
information,
inaccurate,
it's
Your Honor.
information.
There's an objection. Hold on.
Strike.
Go ahead.
Move to strike statements by Mr.
Sorry for the
Brooks.
interruption.
They are facts not in evidence, Your Honor, and it's a complete misstatement.
Sustained. Strike
How's it a
the-
misstatement when I have the information?
Mr. Brooks, move on.
This is information that I feel like you needed to know. You should have known. Information that was taken away from you. Why? To prove a case? Information that you definitely should have been privy to. DA says the defendant has an utter disregard for human life. Utter disregard for human life. Not realizing that they're talking about someone that has children. Talking about someone that watched their children come out of the womb and be born into this world, cut the umbilical cord, held them before their mom even did it. Moments that I'll never forget. And yet they say disregard, utter disregard for human life. They made reference to a rage, as if they were, or if this particular DA was right there, standing right there, as if this DA is a psychiatrist. I said to myself, what rage? What do you mean rage? How can you characterize that? How can you have the audacity to diagnose what someone's brain is? Where it's at, what it's thinking, why it thinks the way it does? DA makes references to blocks of no one being injured, but then says it's intentional. You add that up with the supposed rage, the supposed intent to harm and kill. And it doesn't kick in until well within blocks. And maybe it's just me, but I would think if I was characterizing someone with this intent to kill and this rage and this anger, then why weren't people immediately harmed? Why would someone with intent to kill and rage try to alert people of their presence, repeatedly honk their horn? You heard a detective, if you recall, testify that the vehicle that he observed was not only honking his horn, but was not speeding. So where does this rage kick in? Where does this insatiable intent to kill kick in? I speak as someone who's known someone for years. Which brings me back to the vehicle. What if the vehicle couldn't stop because of the malfunction?
Objection, fact, not in evidence.
What if the driver of the vehicle was unable to stop the vehicle? Because of that fact, what if the driver may have panicked? Does that make the driver a crazed, or not crazed, a rage? Does that make the driver in a rage and intent on killing people? DA played exhibit 17. You don't see anyone struck in that vehicle. On that exhibit, you don't see anyone struck. Was someone who had this intent to kill, this rage, as she says. If that was their intent, wouldn't they have taken the opportunity to hit as many people as they could? Target people, mow down people. Reference was made to this vehicle, the damage. Says this was all caused by bodies, but then later turns around and says hits barricades and other objects. I've heard testimony about hearing loud crashes and things of that nature, but the DA wants you to believe that this all came from people. Evidence doesn't support that. So I go back to trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened in the last year. Praying for those families, praying for the people that tragically lost their life, because that should not be lost either. The fact that there was lives lost, and all the emphasis has been put on the alleged defendant. And the people have been disregarded. Makes me wonder, Does the DA even care about those people? There's been prayers going up every day. It's been suffering on both sides. It's been threats, hate mail. Because of the narratives that's been put out there, the misconceptions that have been put out there, the lies that have been put out there, lies that have caused my children not to be able to go to school, to be bullied, for my mother to have to leave her home and stay at a hotel because she's afraid for her safety, because she gets hate mail shoved through her mailbox. My nieces and nephews to fear for their safety. And what's been equally hard is not only having to answer the questions from my daughter, who was 7 at the time, my baby girl, who was 7 at the time, is now 8. Attempting to answer her questions that she's asking and still continue to shield her from what she sees, what she hears. Having a newborn son that I haven't even been able to meet. Haven't been able to hold, touch, kiss. Having to navigate everything that comes with this whole situation. While still attempting to wrap my head around it. I can't honestly say how many times I've sat in my cell, especially during lights out, alone, where it's just you. And just been praying and asking myself, how could this happen? Not just for the people, but for everybody involved, the community too. How could this happen? How? The hardest questions you can ask is those that don't have an answer. No matter how much thinking you do, no matter how much you try to look at it from different perspectives and listen to other outside perspectives and listen to people that you trust and that you love, still coming up with nothing. But to think for 1 second, one question I never had to ask was if this was intentional. That's something that I never asked once. Because I know it wasn't. As a matter of fact, it never even crossed my mind to even attempt to ask myself that, because I know it wasn't. And I know sometimes during this trial probably doesn't show. Maybe hard to believe. But trust me when I say no one outside of the families that had to go through this, no one's heart is more in pieces than mine. So again, I go back to all these exhibits. Go back to everything that's been shown, everything that's been testified to. Everything you've heard during this whole process, this trial. And again, I say the same thing that I said earlier. Same thing I said in opening statements. I'm not reading from any paper, any books. Everything you've heard in opening statements, everything you're hearing now is from right here. Everything. You have the decision. You and you alone. All of you. You have the decision. I'm sure you've taken a lot of notes during this process. Some days are longer than others. A lot of movement in and out of the courtroom for various reasons. Remember the power that you have. Don't for 1 second let it be taken away from you. I can never understand the position of sitting on the jury in something of this magnitude. So I'm sure there's a lot of pressure. I pray that the right decision is made. right decision. It's almost like that a message, well, not message, but that writing when we're in our vehicles and we have that rear view mirror and it said things are closer than they appear. But it's also another way of saying sometimes things aren't as they appear. I can't speak for anyone else, but me, myself, I believe in Jesus Christ. That's how I was raised. That's what I believe in. None of us are perfect. But I try every day to make sure that I acknowledge him. That's why every time I step in this courtroom, I have my Bible with me everywhere I go. I even read it on breaks, recesses. This is not something that started at the beginning of this incident. This is something that has been instilled in me since I came out of the womb. This is how my family lives their life. This is how we was raised. For whatever mistakes that I myself have made in my life, I've made peace with God. Made peace. I'm happy to say that my conscience is clear. And because I believe, I trust him with my life. Nobody will never know why it was his will for this to happen. A lot of lives were changed that day, mine included. God's way is not our own. And no matter how much sometimes we want to question, we have to have faith. Look inside yourself. Look inside yourself and make the right decision. look inside your heart. You have everything in your hands now. Everything. Do what's right. Do what's right. Don't let the smoke and mirrors take away your power. Don't let the theatrics take away your power. Each and every one of you has a decision. What's right? Make the right decision. It's hard to think about my younger kids getting older and at some point having to explain everything to them. Kids don't stay kids forever. And nowadays, kids is frankly a lot smarter than we were when we was kids. I'll tell you that much. I got a letter the other day from my youngest daughter, and she's still learning cursive right now, so she's the best writer when it comes to cursive. She'd rather print. She said, "Dad," and this is from the letter. She said, "Dad, why are people saying all these mean things about you?" I haven't read the rest of that letter yet. The rest of that sentence said, "That's not the dad I know." this year I've been called a lot of things. And to be fair, I am a lot of things. A murderer is not one of them. Never has been, never will be. So before I close my statements, I just want to say, open your hearts. Go inside yourself when making this decision. Have no fear. Pray and do what you know is right. What you know is right. Think about everything you've heard. Think about everything you haven't been privileged to hear. Think about the whole entire picture. And above everything, whatever you decide, make sure you yourself can live with it. Make sure you can live with it. That's the magnitude of the power that you have. Just like this tissue is in my hand, this is everything. You have everything. Be at peace with what you decide. Had no regrets. Don't let this decision weigh on you after it's over. Hopefully we got a lot of living ahead of us. Lord willing. Don't look back and kick yourself in the behind. It's been about 3 weeks with you. And it took a lot of courage and a lot of guts to pause your life for this. To put important things on hold, to basically stop your life. You should be commended for being able to sit up here with this amount of pressure. I want you guys to know that's not lost on me. I'm sure it's a lot. And you all should be commended because it took courage to do this. I don't know, but I would bet a lot of people wouldn't want to be sitting in your position right now. And you guys had the guts to do it. Thank you for that. Thank you for taking pretty much a month and setting it to the side for this. I know it's probably not proper, but you guys deserve a round of applause if you could get one. Thank you guys sincerely, and I know, and I have faith, and I trust that you guys know what's right. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think it's fair to just say guys, but I believe in your heart you know what's right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I give the state an opportunity to present rebuttal, please stand for a minute. So please stand. All right, have a seat, please. And Attorney Opper, I did time both closings. You have 13:28 left.